Well, again, I think what you said in the beginning is right. There really is no such thing as a mistake. It's a mistake to believe in mistakes, right? Because the only way anyone learns is through error, and then the correcting of that error, and then making another error in the other direction and correcting it, right? It's like tacking in a sailboat.
Yeah.
You get better and better at it and more accurate. But these mistakes of what is happening and what one should do is what increases our wisdom. But we have to be willing to learn from it. The problem with the ego is it makes deliberate mistakes. It deliberate glitches, deliberate problems for others out of its anger and rejection and refusal to grow and wanting others to suffer the way I suffered. The ego has that, at least in the subconscious shadow, that can often erupt involuntarily, and you discovered that what you thought was just a mere mistake was actually a sabotage because there was an intention underlying it. That's what has to be uncovered, right? That's where the Jekyll and Hyde kind of situation arises. And every ego today is a Jekyll and Hyde. Okay, some will try to hide the Hyde, but it always comes out in some way until it has been defeated. And so this, the question of discerning between an innocent mistake that will enable you to grow and a pattern of, let's say, sabotaging the harmony of a situation or getting angry when it's not really needed to get angry. It's not a simple mistake. It's a decision to fuel the enjoyment of that aggression or that sense of revenge or whatever it was. And it's uncovering any of those motivations that are below the surface, but that may be pushing the ego into patterns of making the same mistake over and over again that really has to be released.
It's interesting when you said a mistake. It's like we're in a play and we're practicing the scene, and
take one.
Sometimes you have to,
yes.
take exactly. And it's there's something very innocent about that because it's play. You're trying to figure it out. It's like the performativity paradox aspect of it. But I guess what I experienced this week was, I wrote to you straight away with the situation that I was in, but there's also in the mind kind of relating to an other because. Let's say my perceived other doesn't have enough information, and if they see the mistake, it creates hysteria and all of these kinds of things. So is that whole thought process more of like a super ego that is active, or is there ever any kind of rationalization for actually not, like if I'm transparent with you, but I don't want other people to see the mistake because I think that it just creates hysteria. Is that an inaccurate?
Yeah, I think that's a mistake.
That's a mistake.
Yeah, you shouldn't care what the other thinks.
Right.
And I didn't think you made a mistake at all, okay?
Right.
You got bad information,
right.
But you acted on it in good faith, and anyone would have done that in your situation who hadn't already made that mistake, at least, and gone through that. So I think you shouldn't have the narrative, oh, I did something wrong, right? So the mistake was at another level of the capitalist system that was making an offer of something that shouldn't have been on the market in the first place. So I won't go into all the details here, but the point is that we're in a situation today where the entire environment, both the economy and the poisoned natural environment, are all productive of bad effects and of collateral damage because they're all based on false ideas of chemistry and virology and all the other pseudosciences that we were taught we should trust, that we should mistrust very seriously. Right. That's the mistake, was trusting naively, and hopefully everyone has grown out of that one.
Right.
But the real issue is then, how do you trust? How do you discern legitimate authority that has my best interests at heart from those who say they do, but really they want to commit genocide, you know? And today we're in a situation where governments themselves are the anarchies, and they're acting completely illegitimately and fomenting the destruction and extinction of life on the planet. Literally, that's where we are. And so to be in that situation, which is going to produce all kind of collateral mistakes, right? Which often means oops, death, right? That was offered by supposed medications, etc. And we have to be very careful to discern the intentions of those we are dealing with, and even the unintentional dependency on false beliefs that are claimed to be scientific or based on experience, when in fact they are not. And so this issue of accurate information versus disinformation, and the media's attempt to mind control us all, which is actually very successful, and makes use of our mimetic tendency to imitate the herd. That's the mistake that we have to no longer make, and really attain individuation at the level of soul and then pure spirit.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think kind of the more underlying message that I got from this situation is it's important not to pursue a piece of information as though it's true just because it makes things easy.
Yes.
And it's this idea of comfort, which I know Catherine Austin Fitz talks about a lot.
Yeah.
It's where we can't tolerate any discomfort at all, and we're actually willing just to completely give up our intelligence in order just to have an easy kind of outlet.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Most people have given up thinking, and all they're interested in is images, and quick fixes, and a sense of certainty without any kind of research or due diligence or real deep thought. And most people's capacity to think clearly has atrophied, and they are not able to do it. So there really has to be a re-education of those who want to grow spiritually, because we've been indoctrinated with nihilism and atheism, and most people can't overcome that on their own. So again, going back to the other question of humility, we have to be humble enough to be willing to be apprentices and to go through a learning process with those who have already gone through it and are further along on the journey. But most egos are not willing to do that. They will not surrender to anyone, even as an interim mode to gain their own autonomy and sovereignty. And you have to go through that. You know, if you want a black belt in a martial art, you got to start studying with a white belt and then a green and whatever else they give you in your dojo. But you've got to apprentice to those who already have the 9th Dan black belts, because otherwise you're not going to get there. And you'll always be a loser. But this is the problem, and many people come to this ashram, and I've had it happen recently several times, and they said, I feel called to be a teacher. Not I feel called to be a student and to learn to be a teacher, but without knowing anything, and without, I want a certificate, I want to come for a week and leave here, with the authority to start my own religion, and and take people and guide them to the real. Well, okay, if they can do that, fine, then they don't need my help at all. But you're not going to do it in a few days. It takes a lot of inner work to overcome the ego's blind spots and proclivities and false beliefs and all of the obstacles that one doesn't even know will appear at the different assemblage points. And so without that clear understanding and humility, the arrogance of the ego, which doesn't want to leave its Peter Pan state anyway, is going to overcome the upper death drive that wants to grow and kill the ego and be reborn as pure spirit.
Thank you. I think it's a really interesting point. I often have the thought process, it's not like you have to surrender and take feedback from everyone. You choose one figure in your life and just face all of those issues of rapport and resistance and trust and process it with one person. I appreciate very much the opportunity to do that, but it doesn't need to turn into like everyone's just going to tell me what to do. That's a lack of discernment as well. It's with your guide kind of thing.
Yeah, then you're in chaos.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the teaching is to find the answers within. But first get them corroborated to make sure you're not being deceived by your own ego. And then when you can discern between those two and you've eliminated the tendency of self-deception, then you don't need a teacher anymore. But that getting past the ego's desire to hold you down and make you believe you're already a teacher and you're the Messiah and you're Jesus reborn and all of that. That's psychosis, but that's the state that people are in because they don't have within the ego any longer any desire to learn and to grow and to become truly divinized. And the divine nature is who we are, and we have that as our birthright. But most have sold their birthright in order to have, a certificate from a weekend as a Reiki master or something, and they're going to settle for a false kind of authority or power rather than go for the real.
Thank you. Really helpful.
Thank you. It was a very important question.